Hey gamers, welcome back to a different kind of video. I think I'm gonna call this like talking to the void or something. I don't know, figure it out. But I want to talk about Fire Punch. I finished reading it. I have a lot to say. I have a lot to say about this manga. So this video will be all over the place. There's no structure to it, so bear with me. But I have to say, I don't think I've ever been disappointed with anything Fujimoto put out. Like, I've read Goodbye Eri, I've watched Look Back, I've read and watched Chainsaw Man. I know he has this like short stories. Didn't read those yet, but it also got animated, so that's coming. I'm gonna see that, read that pretty soon. But I was very curious about Fire Punch because I remember when I started watching and reading Chainsaw Man, I saw a lot of people bring up like, yeah, imagine all these people who are starting with Chainsaw Man. Imagine what would happen if they read Fire Punch. And then it would go to, will Fire Punch be adapted? Can it be adapted? And that always like piques my interest because, you know, a manga was able to be published, right? Like it got published and like you could buy it on Amazon, you can read it on Shonen Jump, only on desktop though. You cannot read it on the mobile app. So I was like, okay, this is very very interesting. I'm very curious to see what is this all about. Man, there is, I know a lot of people are torn on the current arc of Chainsaw Man. Like, I get it. But personally, I think this is the best arc of Chainsaw Man. I've been loving the unpredictability of it, not knowing what it's building towards, and the small character moments you get are really good. Like, I could gush about the character moments of this current arc of Chainsaw Man, but uh, I want to talk about Fire Punch a little bit more. Uh, when I was reading Fire Punch, it made me think of this current arc of Chainsaw Man. Like, there's a lot I think that these two things share in common with what I love. Fire Punch was very unpredictable. I didn't know where it was going. It really went off the rails in a lot of ways that really made me start to think in ways that I usually would think about if I'm watching like something like that's like David Lynch. And even then I wouldn't say that Fujimoto is David Lynch like or anything like that. He's a very unique individual, sure. But uh David Lynch and Fujimoto and like Hideki Anno, whatever, all got me to think about what I was like watching in different ways. It made me think about stuff in unique perspectives. With Fire Punch, it starts off with a very basic revenge story, and it's a good revenge story. It's a very good like beginning to it. You feel a lot about the beginning, where it's like, okay, I'm on board with this. It's very linear in that like he killed Doma came, killed Agnes, the entire village, burned them alive, uh killed his little sister, all because from his perspective he saw that these people were like eating limbs, and it was like, oh, they're cannibals, this is fucked up, and he killed them for that. Like he didn't know the full picture of, well, this guy is a regenerative bless, and he was just cutting off his arm, and that's what he was feeding them. But he didn't have that perspective. He just saw them eating people and was like, okay, uh, these people are monsters. Let's get rid of them. Like, didn't even like ask for the context. Uh, and that naturally fuels Agni to get revenge for killing his sister, killing his village, all this stuff. You're already on his side at that point because you understand what was going on. Uh, then they introduce you to Bermdorg. I'm probably gonna butcher names, so I'm sorry, but they introduce Bermdorg as this like village that uses blessed, who are these people with abilities, as slaves, firewood, whatever. So again, they portray these people as like villains, like natural villains that you'd be against. Like, there's a scene when I was reading, and this part I was like, I can't believe what I'm reading, right? And this is when like Sun was in a room with Nineto waiting for some guy to come in because they were going to be evaluated as slaves, and they were going to be like put to work. And it is like we're probably gonna be sold as sex slaves because of who we are, whatever. And they didn't know that Sun was a guy either. Like they misgendered Sun completely when they met him. Uh, and this guy comes in, and you immediately think, okay, like that this guy is like putting an act out, like he's just pretending to be like a cool guy. But I was like, okay, he's probably gonna be fucked up, but what degree, right? Like you don't know, but you know that there's something like off that you're just not trusting. And then like he just brings in two dogs, and I'm like, I don't like where this is going. Like he's either gonna be like kill the dogs, or he's gonna use the dogs to threaten them, or something. Like it's gonna be something like that. And then he tells Sun to go on all fours, and what happens after that. I kind of just don't want to even say it because it's so fucked up. And I read this, and I was like, what are we doing? What the fuck? And I was like, these people are monsters. So they successfully get you to hate them a lot. Like you're just like, fuck these people. Uh, Even and then when they tried to escape, like they cut Sun's legs off, and it's like, okay, you're gonna be firewood. It's like Jesus, like these people are awful. So you're already like on board with Agni's revenge, and when he meets up with Tokita, and they actually make it to Bermdorg to like accomplish his revenge, he starts talking about like, I don't care about revenge. Like I just this is not what like Luna would want. This is like whatever. Like he kind of like was open to just say I'm willing to drop it. And I think this is like an interesting aspect of the story where you see Toguro refusing to let go of the idea that like this doesn't have to be a complete movie. Like do something else. Like you can make another movie, but she was so fixated on getting this story about revenge and seeing like uh Agni kill Doma and all this stuff. Meanwhile, Agni is just like willing to let go until he starts seeing all these people who are like slaves and cages and all this stuff. Then he decides, let's save them. Why not? And he saves them, and all this stuff happens after that. And it's such a unique arc because you're told you see a perspective of Vermbrugge that's negative, but then as it goes on, uh I will say, like, I don't necessarily know if they try to throw in like, because after like volumes later, uh Agni finally confronts Doma, this elderly guy who feels like regret for what he did, because he was saying like, the worst thing that could happen is a lack of education. If you don't have that as a foundation, you're no longer human. And I think that's a very good point. Like a lot of people who end up being ignorant end up causing a lot of damage and a lot of hurt, and they don't think uh about the other people or whatever. They don't have the education to understand that. Like they're not like education is very important to understand both history, where you came from, all this stuff. Like education helps a lot, and that's what Doma's point was. Like he was saying, like, look, you know, the action I did back then was from an uneducated person. But at the same time, like you did not teach your village to fish. There's other ways to get food. You chose to cut your arm off, and what do you think is gonna happen if, let's say, you die? Let's say you go away. What if you're not part of that village anymore? What are these people gonna do? They're left eating arms, and that's all they know. They're either gonna starve or they're gonna start hunting other people, and that's like a very interesting perspective. Like you as the reader start off understanding like why they're doing it, but you never really think, because it's a post-apocalyptic setting. Everywhere around you is snow and ice and all this stuff, so you just accept that there's a food scarcity problem because of the ice witch, and all this stuff. And yet, later on, you see Doma fishing. He's getting fish. All these people were able to get all this kind of food. And it's like, and at that point, I'm like, holy shit, he's right. Like, you never once ask when you start the story, like, are they really couldn't get anything else? Like, this is what they, like, and this was out of convenience on top of that. Like, there was a lack of education in that sense. Like, like, they did not think about getting all their food. So it's very interesting to see how it turned on its head at that point. And then, like, Agni decides, okay, well, there's no point in killing him. Like, he has a family, he has kids. Like, like there's no point. So he walks away, and Togen is like was upset with him. And I also liked the little added thing where she got really upset that Doma was like, yeah, I watched this movie and it was and that's what we based our whole like community on. And she was like, you watched this crappy movie and you did all this? You're the worst kind of person and all this like and she also blamed him for like because I think like they rated all these movies, and she was very upset with that as well. And I think that's like interesting as well. Like Togeda is a very movie driven person, and this person came from a community that was all about movies apparently because they wanted Togeda to film movies. Uh, and as they're walking back, she was telling him at that point, uh, why you should have killed him. You should have done that. And he's like, would the main character of your movie do that? Like, would a main character of a movie kill someone out of revenge? And then they said, no, no, they wouldn't, and no one, and the audience would not believe them. They would not like them, and whatever. And it made me realize at that point just how silly it is, right? We make these movies and we make all these characters very moral, ethical, and all this stuff. And then we look at it at humanity and you look at people as a whole, it's not that clear and or nor clean. Like there's not this, pinpoint morality that everyone feels. For multiple reasons, a lot of things that go on in life. But it's funny that like we have these movies that portray a very idealized world almost, and in Fire Punch it kind of like shows just how cruel humanity can be. Meanwhile, we make these movies that aspire to be moral driven almost. We have these little rules for these main characters, but we don't apply these rules to us necessarily. It's very interesting that it kind of like addressed that in some way. And I was thinking about that when I was reading that. Uh, I I feel like there was something else I wanted to say about the relationship. Oh, and then for Bermdorg to base its entire civilization around a movie is also like it plays in line with what Doma was talking about with education. Like they watched a movie and they based their entire uh view on that, and they didn't and they weren't open to any other viewpoint or anything else. And that's in a way like they also used movies to commentate on religion, how people just they see a Bible, they read it, and then it's like, okay, this is the only thing we can look at. There's no other reason to think about any other perspective. This is it. And you realize when you really look back at it, it's like, maybe we should have spent more time like thinking more about like what and educate ourselves a little bit more about certain things, about other people and all this other stuff. So it's interesting to play. It played a lot with that. Uh, the other aspect I liked as well is just the dynamic between Togeda and Neneto. There was one Reddit thread I read that I kind of disagreed with. Because they said that like that Togeda and Neneto never really like addressed when they first met each other, right? Like Neneto was on a train, she was gonna get raped. Togeda showed up, but Togeda was just interested in filming, like didn't care about what was gonna happen with Neneto until Neneto said that she would do whatever. Like if you stop them from raping me, I'll do whatever you want. And Togeda decided to take her up on that and made her uh, the camera girl basically for for her movie. So that so a lot of people like they did not like address that at all, and there's no like anything. I don't think they're needed to because I think Nanito understood like after the fact, like once she left that this person is just dedicated to making a movie, like, whatever. Secondly, where she is now is significantly better than where Togeda found her, so it's like, you know, she's not gonna rock the boat at that point either. Like there was no point because it's not like that Togeda necessarily treated her any worse, like like Togeda definitely did care about Naneto's well being for the most part, it's not like, oh, whatever. So I don't really agree that they needed to show any of that like reconciliation as much because I think it was understood. Uh, but I like Naneto as a character. She was one of my favorite characters too. Her and Togeda were my two favorite characters I loved reading because I think Naneto was a very grounded character as well. Like she just understood what was going on around her. She was very um rational in every situation that she was in. But the other thing I liked about Naneto and just the flow of the story, you see all this awful stuff happening with all these characters. They're in such a dark position. You're just greeted with nothing but cruelty. And there's a scene where Togeda leaves Naneto in a room with these two guys, and they're just talking. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, they're gonna do something. They're gonna do something like fucked up to her, aren't they? Like, because at this point in the story, you've not seen any levity like at all. It's just been non-stop cruelty. So you're just anticipating something's gonna happen in this little room, and you find out that nothing's gonna happen. These two are actually a gay couple, and they just talk about how they just want to be happy and they just want to live their life and live who they are. They don't want to, and that's all they were concerned with. And I was reading this like it is so refreshing. Like the way that this story is told is so unique that it puts you through the ringer of like just emotional turmoil that this one scene you're expecting it to continue. It's actually a refreshing breath of levity where it's just they're just shooting the shit and that's that. And it's like, okay, finally we have a nice breather. And they do it again when Agni meets the Judah tree and like destroys it, and Judah like loses her memory, and then they try to live, uh, just live their lives in this little camp, and that's it. Like they had no, and that's all they wanted to do at this point. And throughout this, like Agni kept asking the question, like, he just wants to die. He meets someone that says that because of Fire Punch, I end up getting raped. I want Fire Punch to die. And he's like, okay, I'll kill Fire Punch. And he knew that he was Fire Punch, but he couldn't obviously admit it. But he was willing to try to do that because he understood how bad of a person he was as Fire Punch. And I think that's also an interesting aspect. Uh, I saw a Twitter post that mentions how Fujimoto's work is so depressing, and it's just depression. It's just this, and I can't help but disagree. I think you're doing a grave disservice to Fujimoto's work if that's all you think of. Like that's the big takeaway of all his stories, because all of his stories in some way deal with more than just that. And Fire Punch, I think, has a lot of like comedic bits in it that is in places you wouldn't expect. Just look how he drew Fire Punch. Like there's a panel where they give him like a suit or something. They give him like an outfit, and he looks so stupid. Like Fire Punch just looks like such a goofy little dumbass because he has like one serious face, like the other side is like on fire, but he has this like weird like fire eye, whatever. Like the eye's not really well defined, but it just looks so stupid. And I think that's like intentional and to be like a nice like comedic bit almost. Like it works stylistically in a lot of panels that are very serious and ominous, but then there's a comedic side to it, so it shows a duality, both in the tone of story and just the levity and comedy that's sprinkled in. That I think it's really interesting. Uh, the other aspect I really liked was the conversation between Tokuda and Agni. This was like right like on their like no. This was when Tokuda was leaving. Like she was running away because a dude who could see people's hearts said, "Don't trust her, Lord Agni. Sure, she has the body of a woman, but she has the heart of a man. She's lying to you." All this stuff. Like, and I also want to say what's interesting is uh that person was mostly upset or saying that this person not being honest with who they are. Like they weren't upset with like anything else. I don't know how to describe it, right? But anyways, that's why she leaves. Agni is trying to like get an understanding of her, and that's what he wants to know. He wants to know like what did he mean by that? Did that bother her? Whatever. And Tokuda like talks to him about like, well, he's right. Internally I feel like I'm this gender. I don't want to be a woman. I never really saw myself as that, and I wish I could get a sex change. Like all this stuff, like the way that the dialogue is written between these two characters, it's such a beautiful moment, because it's not ham-fisted, it's not uh cheap, and it gives these characters a lot of like emotional weight with what they're going through. The fact that there's also like a parallel or something that they both can relate to, because you look at Agni. Agni is this big, buff, tall guy that looks very mature, but he never had a true childhood. Like he never grew up normally, so he has like the brain of a child. Like he's in an adult body, but he's a child basically, and that's kind of like comparative. I mean, Toda kind of like tells him that uh he never felt like he didn't like the social pressure that he had to keep presenting himself as a woman, and he never felt like that was right. All that like he just explained that directly to Agni, to the point where I think is also directed to the reader. There's like a panel where Toda explains, yeah, you probably like the crazy girl person, whatever, but this side of Tokuda you don't like. And it was such a it was so heartbreaking just how unfair it was for that character. Like the fact that like you could feel this way about a character that is drawn, that is just in a story. It's just another like feat, right? Like that's when the story's like a really good story, in my opinion. Like this is when it's a masterpiece, because you feel a lot with all these characters. And the scene is was such a beautiful scene. Like I was thinking about this scene even like long after. Like it was just I was thinking about it, I was like, man, that's crazy. Like uh the way it's explained, the way it is depicted, like it just didn't feel cheap. It felt like it was a very earned moment for the character. And to have the panel where she's like kind of like wiping her tears away, saying that, it was just, well, his tears I should say, like I should keep it consistent. uh it was just so sad. I was like, geez, like, and to explain like the turmoil that he felt having to deal with this, it's just, it's hard. It's really hard to really blame him for feeling this way, and not wanting to like kind of deal with it uh directly, and just wanting just to run. And I think there's a nice earnest feel between Toga and Agnew, where Agnew is just straight like, look, I don't care about that. Like, you were there for me all this time. Like, without you, like, I wouldn't know what the fuck to do. And it's like, that's so just interesting to see. Like Agni just saw Togeda as a person, like didn't care for that. Just and even was like willing to say, well, I guess I should call you a little brother or whatever. Like was willing to even like um respect how Togeda felt about himself. And then Togeda did say like you could call me like little sister or whatever. And I think that's also because I was wondering about that too. Like I was kind of doing some more reading on this, and I kind of agree with this idea that uh in this world of like a post-apocalypse and all this other stuff, like it might be better off for Togeda to not really uh express that side of himself because of how intolerant some people can be in this kind of setting, right? But it was still like interesting to see like just have this be expressed in a way that's not like a token character and it's not even like out of nowhere because I would even argue that it was kind of even foreshadowed with how they drew the character. Like there was a scene where Togeda was naked, and usually like in a lot of stories they made use that opportunity to be like, oh, look, you can look at her ass, oh, look at that. And here it's just like they didn't do much of that. It was just very like whatever. And I think like even the way that like Togeda dressed is very like foreshadowing as well. It's a very well written character, and I just like that scene a lot. The next scene I really liked as well, maybe a little more than that, was when Agony and Togeda make it to Doma, and uh just as like Doma as Agni was gonna do, Doma explains to Agni the the worst thing that you could do for people is to have them be uneducated. Like it to be to have a foundation of no education, to not have an educated foundation, you're no longer human. And that is such a unique message to portray. So he doesn't kill Doma because of that. He explains about the movie with Togeda, and he says like, well, you no movie hero would do that. I don't know if I said this in this video before. I feel like I did, but whatever. Uh, but I like that like Agni was just like, look, a movie character would not do that. So that's why I also didn't want to do it because Luna would not want me to or whatever. So you know Togeda agrees, and I again I don't know if I said this already. I might be repeating myself, but uh, it's just funny that we have these morals for movie characters. Like we have these like very moralistic, ideal movie characters, but real life is never like that, and you see that within Fire Punch. But as he's walking away, you start seeing flashbacks of his past. You see like all the burned corpses, his dead, and then the moment he sees his dead sister, the panel underneath that is him like looking behind him, and at that point I was like, oh shit, and then like you see him become a demon, which is Fire Punch and all this stuff, and that was visceral. That was just intense. And then after that, he was like, "What happened? Where am I? Like, what is this?" It was so insane to see. And then like, uh, at one point later on, and this is the part that also stuck with me a lot. Was a kid I think one of the kids that was with Doma like saw him or something, and Agni just attempted suicide at that point. So he goes in the ocean and then just like tries to drown himself. Uh, Togeda dives in to save him, and at this point, I was like, God damn it, no, no, not Togeda. I was so that death I was not ready for. I was so not willing to see it. Uh, and the way they showed it was so good. It was the best way to show a character's death I have seen in anything. Because they build up like where do you think people who die go? they go to a movie theater, they get popcorn, they get to their seat, whatever. So when like Agni like attempts suicide, you see that. You see, okay, he's in a movie theater. Oh, he's getting popcorn. He's going to his seat. He sees Luna there. Oh, and then you see Toga like grab him and yank him away, and she takes his seat, and she starts saying like, "Oh, this was the movie that." You know, I was just like, that part, that part killed me. It was so sad seeing that. Like that. I am such a sucker for that kind of like uh scene. Like you put that in a movie, it fucks me up. So yeah, he like yanks him out, and you see like what she did. They initially like the following chapter how she rescued him, and it's just Togeda asks like he doesn't want to live. He wants to die, but why do I want him to live? Like what's gonna be my final word? And why should he be the one? Why should I tell him that he should live? That's kind of like fucked up and unfair to him because of all of what happened to him. Like, there's a lot of stuff that Agni did that was both awful and just. I mean, there's no like Fire Punch. Like, there's a meme I saw on Reddit of all places where it's that meme where you have all these swords pointing to the center and that, and it's just Agni was both the villain, the anti-villain, the anti-hero, the hero, all these things in one character, and that embodies the hectic nature of what fire is. Like it, you know, you really do think you do realize just how literal and interesting the title is, and just the like you think fire, you're naturally gonna think revenge and anger and all this other stuff, but there's also a chaotic nature to fire, and you see that like within Fire Punch. Uh, so that aspect of it was interesting. And then they show the Ice Witch who rescues Judah, who takes Judah away before Agni can actually kill her, or before she actually can die. And it makes me and this part was also a crazy scene. This scene was so as a lot of people debate if Fire Punch can be adapted into an anime, be it a movie or a show. I part of me kind of wants it to. There is a part of me that would be interested to see it being adapted, but another part of me is praying that it never gets adapted and it stays as a manga because, uh, I don't know about the contents of the story or anything like that. I don't know how much of that would have to be changed or whatever. But I think the visual medium of the manga does Fire Punch way better than what the movie would ever do, or if an anime would do it. I think it's very intrinsic. Like you look at Spy Family, and I think Spy Family like it looks nice, in black and white and ink and all that, but it works also very well animated. And to a degree, I feel the same with Chainsaw Man, but I think Chainsaw Man also looks better as a manga. But Fire Punch, I think, is like this should I cannot see this being animated unless they attempt it uh the way they try with Uzumaki. I know Uzumaki was not a good anime. I'm not saying the anime was good, but I did appreciate that they tried to evoke a lot of the visual style of it. And I think like that would be the way to go with the Fire Punch anime. Just have it be like black and white, cross hatching, all of this. It would be crazy. Like it would probably be a lot of money, and I don't think any animation studio would want to do that. But that's the only way I think it would work because there's a page where you see Judah lying in bed and she can't move anything from the neck down, and she meets the Ice Witch, which you know the story tells you like, oh, the Ice Witch was made up, she's not real. And I was like, what the fuck? Like at that point, that was a huge plot reveal. I was like, holy shit! Like then what's going on here? But then uh you actually see the Ice Witch actually does exist. And I think it's interesting now. I kind of question uh that I think Skill, I think is her name is. I'm sorry, I'm butchering her name too. But I kind of think she pretended she was the Ice Witch, but she just used what was going on to kind of be up front for her actual power, which was to turn people into trees or whatever. But anyways, she Skilla talks to Judah about how she's gonna turn into a tree, and it was like a horror scene. It was like she was in bed. You had all these like roots going into the bed or something. It was so unique, so like interesting of an image. uh, and I also wonder, I so like a lot of people are like was saying like by the end like Judah was also an antagonist. She pushed this religion of the Ice Witch, all this stuff. Like she pushed this lie on all these people and did all this stuff. Like naturally she would not be seen in a good light and she would have a guilt ridden conscience. So you could argue that it was comeuppance and that's why she became a tree. But part of me was like wondering like did anyone feel bad for her becoming a tree? Like, you think about it though, like, she had no agency in that matter. She couldn't like do anything and becoming a tree to further Skilla's like motive of speeding the extinction of the current humanity to start a whole new cycle, a whole new generation, so that they can make more Star Wars movies. It's such a unique uh, idea, uh, and I'm just like saying like, is it? And then I was thinking, like, is this cruel? But at the same time, you could argue this is what she was putting all these other people who have these abilities through anyway. So I guess in a way, it is just. But then Fire Punch shows up. He goes back to his home base, whatever, and he sees the giant tree, and he goes all the way up onto the top of the tree, destroys the tree, and this doomed humanity because this was gonna reverse the frozen Earth and all this stuff. But since Fire Punch came and destroyed it, it continues to ruin, to decimate humanity or whatever. But when he did that, it wiped away his ability of the eternal flame. I think it still had regeneration, but he just didn't want to do it. Or no, I think it was she wiped that away too. But he got it back, over time, whatever. You could think of it as in any direction, whatever. But they also lost their memory. Like Judah lost all her sense of self. She was like a child again, and Agni kind of like was like, "Oh yeah, you're Luna," and he knew he had to kill her, but he was like, but he liked but she looked so much like his sister, he couldn't bring himself to do it. So he just kept going, and there was this other refreshing part that was slow moving, and it was just them living in this community with these people that were disciples of Doma. And I just sat there and I was like thinking to myself, like, something's gonna happen. It hasn't happened yet. It's gonna build, but like it kind of reminds me of what I said earlier about that scene with the Nenta and those two guys in that little room where you're expecting something bad is gonna happen, but it was actually like wholesome and all that kind of stuff. And with this, it's like you had all these volumes, all these chapters that were all depressing and sad, and then you have uh this one arc that was just them like fishing, chopping wood or whatever, like all this stuff. And then at night, Agni would try to kill himself because one of the people in this camp was raped by the people that Fire Punch set free. And it's like this, and it's this constant theme of like cycle of violence. And I said this on Twitter, and I'll say it in this video. This is the type of shit Sony could only dream of making, because I think this story of the cycle of violence and revenge is told in such a way that it's far more powerful. Like I wasn't thinking about that when we got to that part. Like after the tree was destroyed and all this stuff, I was like, yeah, they should be able to live. Let them live. They just want to do this, and then but you see echoes of all this of all the karma that happened before, and you're just like, I know, but you just want to see them happy at that point, but deep down it just can't. It just can't happen. And then like you see, and during this, I was like, we never saw Sun. We haven't seen Sun in a while. We haven't seen Naneto in a while. I wonder what happened to them. Like the last you saw them before all this was they got into a car and drove off. And then you see adult Sun and adult Naneto, and I think it's so fascinating that at the beginning they made an Sun very naive. That he was a very naive person and very easy to manipulate comparatively to anyone else in the cast. And he starts this religion of Fire Punch, and he starts to idol worship him. And they bring this up also early on, where Nanetta started to get concerns of all these people that they rescued and all this stuff are talking as if they know him, but they don't. Like they don't know who this guy is, who he really is, and they're talking to him as if he's some deity. And Sun does the same, and Sun knows him, but Sun is like, no, he's the guy. You don't understand. I saw him do miraculous things, and everything that happened to Sun through Agni was all by coincidence and circumstance. It was not like divine intervention or anything, and that made him a zealot, like passionate about Agni being a god. And when Ninja finally is trying to tell these people he's just a guy, he's no god, all this stuff can be rationally explained, and they kind of like was like, oh, she's a disbeliever, don't listen to her. So this, I will say, this part I was a little confused with. I understand that like to a degree, Sudden and Neto kind of like grew together, and they were basically a couple. I think that's kind of what they were hinting at with them. But I at the so when Sun was telling her like he is a god and this that, it almost seemed like he was gonna kill her for blasphemy. Like he was gonna kill her for not believing in Agni. And then like so that happens, and then later on like Judah tells Neto, you need to take care of Agni. He's not gonna remember who he is. He's gonna become like a new slate, but you need to be there for him. Like, she tells like he killed Sun. How can I do that? And part of me was kind of wondering, would she feel that way? Like I understand it wasn't that she like hated Sun or anything, but I would kind of feel she would be. Now I don't know if she knew how Togeda died or if she even cared. I don't know. I don't know what she knew about that. But I kind of feel she would be more upset about that than Sun comparatively. Like I don't think she'd be happy about Sun, sure, but that I thought was a little weird. Like I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how I don't know how to feel about that fully. It's not bad. It's not like, oh, this took me out of it, but it made me kind of like scratch my head a little bit. Uh, but I do like that. Like she does eventually like agree to that, and you see you see what happened by the end. By the end of Nineto's life, and I think it's very funny that Nineto was basically the only person in the story that was like the most normal one. Like she knew everything was going on around her. She understood what was going on. Like she didn't care about all these like blessed mumbo jumbo nonsense. Like she even told like suddenly, look, I don't care what you do, just don't ruin these people's ways of life. Like if we can live in all this stuff, that's fine. Like think about humanity and all this stuff, which is why she wanted to kidnap Judah and turn her back into a tree. Which kind of goes back to what I said before. Did anyone feel bad about Judah, because the first time she turned into a tree, I can understand that. But at this point in the story, she is not necessarily the same person. She understood why she has to turn into a tree, and she kind of accepted her fate in that. But I still kind of felt like this is kind of unfair at this point. Like, she's not the same person. Like, she's literally like, I'm arguing she's literally not the same person as Judah once was. Like, it's not like Agony where, you know, after the whole thing with the tree, he just didn't remember his name. Like, he knew, like, he had to kill Judah, but he was conflicted because he knew he looked like his sister. Like, Agony was more uh aware of his past than Judah slash Luna was at that point. So it's like, but I guess that is also the point. Like, you're supposed to ask yourself, like, you know, do you feel bad for this character? Is this character different? Is he the same? And it kind of deals with the sense of self, and you see that even with Agony. Agony gets like pulled into multiple directions. He's just a guy. He's God. He's an actor. He's this like, and he never really made any decision on his own. Someone kept making decisions for him that crippled him as a person. And I kind of feel that is also why Fire Punch was not a fully mature individual. He didn't have a good childhood. He didn't have an actual childhood because he was busy being put on like being burned and trying to deal with that. He then was filled with all these people telling him what to do: die, live, over and over. Be a god, be this, be that. And not once in Fire Punch has he ever made a active decision on his own. The only decision he made on his own was saving the slaves of Bermdorg and killing Doman and succumbing to his thirst for revenge. Like, he has not had a well-adjusted upbringing. It's so interesting that by the end, he technically doesn't get any comeuppance for this. And during this time, Judah is still a tree, and she starts talking about how she's losing her sense of self. She knows why she's there. She hopes that whoever she was hoping for would be happy, whatever. And then Agni appears in the tree. This is also where I kind of was like, I don't know what I'm, if I am understanding what's going on here. Like, she's in the tree, he shows up in the tree, and they get very romantic, which is very, 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 very fucking weird, because the beginning of the story, like, Luna just immediately asks Agni, uh, let's, you want to make some babies or something like that? And he's like, what the fuck? No, like, we should not be having this kind of like discussion, Luna. You're my sister. This is wrong. That's wrong. No, and all this stuff. And then it ends with someone that looks like his sister in a tree, and it's like very romantic at that point. It really, it. I mean, it teases as well during that like point in time where they're just trying to live in this camp. It's very weird, but it's just interesting. So I don't know how to make of the ending, and I think it's just, you know, I said this when I was reading the part where like Agni like destroys the Judah tree, and I said at that point, this is a lot like Adam and Eve. There's a lot of Adam and Eve similarities I feel with this, and I think that's what this is going for, another Adam and Eve situation, and this might be how uh, the next generation of humanity begins. And you look at the two individuals that are there, Judah and Agni, two people that have both sinned in their life and have in tremendous guilt and all this stuff, which is pretty biblical. Like, this could be a very biblical like passage almost, with just how it is, and that's probably what it's kind of emulating. So yeah, I think Fujimoto is a master. It's a master of the craft with these stories. Like, Fire Punch is so unique. I really really think it's one of his best works I've seen from him. Uh, Yeah, like I love all his work. I really can't pick a favorite, but this is such a fun read. Like it's been so long since I read something and it was like I need to go to the next chapter. I need to go to the next chapter. I need to go to the next chapter, and then it's like I lose track of time. So it's fantastic. I highly recommend Fire Punch. It's an emotional roller coaster, and I hope you enjoy this video. I'll see you in the next one. Later. Bye.